All right, hey, this is Joshua Haarbrink coming to you from Nashville in the Build Cities and V DAO Building Network States event 2024. And we're hanging out here with Marc from V DAO. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, absolutely, John.
We are in a beautiful time right now. We have coming together tech, regeneration, DeFi, community development.
You know what we call it?
What is it? Tell me.
We call it high tech, high nature, high humanity.
There it is. There it is. Peak integration time, right? This is a beautiful moment. We're finding the place where intention and love brings people together to make things better, but the technology and the business makes it work.
100%.
This is the thing that keeps it going.
100%.
Tell us what's going on with V DAO. How are you tying these things together? What do you see happening right now?
Yeah, so where to start? So V DAO is right now a community building initiative. Even though we have the name DAO in our name, we don't have a token. So it's literally purely grassroots, organic community building. And it's a community building project incubated by a company that I'm leading called Fifth World. Fifth World mission is to accelerate the world's transition towards regenerative, distributed energy, water, and food systems. And that's really a strong belief we had, that we need to move from this paradigm of centralization and focus on financial growth and efficiency to a paradigm of decentralization and growth, but with anti-fragility and resiliency and positive externalities, right? We're dealing with so many negative externalities today as a result of centralization, right? From environmental, degradation to nutrient collapse and the food we're getting to, the loneliness epidemic, societal polarization. I mean, you name it, the list is, I mean, some people call this the meta crisis for lack of a better word, but you get what I mean, right? And our belief is that Bitcoin started something, which was this decentralization mission, which really separated money from state. And this led to a bunch of other crypto projects emerging, carrying that torch and really decentralizing all sorts of digital infrastructure from data, assets, all of that. And we believe for that mission to be completed, we need to also decentralize at the physical level. We need to decentralize physical infrastructure. And so what the DAO is about is really bringing together people who believe in bridging the self-custody of bits, data, and assets with the self-custody of atoms, like the physical stuff, building communities who have self-sufficiency over their energy through solar, microgrids, over their water through rainwater harvesting and other water systems, over their food systems through food forests, market gardens, greenhouses, and really enabling that level of community level autonomy and net positive relationship with the surrounding ecosystem. But also, having those communities connected in the cyberspace through what we call a regenerative network state, right? Because we don't want to build communities in silos. We still are part of the same networks. We share the same values. We are part of the same governance systems. And so the DAO is there to incubate community that believes in that, help those communities to govern themselves, manifest themselves in local, in the real world, in specific locations, enable them to come together, pull in capital, buy land, do something with the land, build sustainable infrastructure, and then also think through all sorts of token-based solutions that can incentivize people to use distributed regenerative, systems at the physical and digital layer. And so we do a lot of awareness and education. We have a strong focus on, the social fabric and culture. We're trying to create local, what we call V hubs all around the world. And we're trying to ideate and kind of enable the community really to ideate token-based products that could incentivize and build coordination layers for people to move in that direction.
Yeah, so you bring up some very interesting things. One thing that I notice is a big conflict is we have people from tech and software and crypto space entering the world of land development. And the finances and the economics for this are very different. You can bootstrap a software solution for $10,000 and 500 hours of your time. Does not work the same with land.
No. Yeah.
We see people trying to start land projects and put a tent on the land to build a community, but this doesn't meet the basic needs that humans need to function. So when you speak to finding solutions or creating solutions to consolidate resources to put into projects, what do you see happening there? How do we activate these for-purpose projects with the capital that's needed?
Yeah.
When it's so difficult to raise this capital from traditional sources?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I can think of a couple of different ways of doing that. I think starting with the network state idea, right, which is this ability today with technology to form community online first, right? Bring people together who share the same values, are looking for the same things, have similar interests, maybe even get them to govern themselves, pull in capital at the digital level and do things together before getting into the real world and actually getting into like dealing with buying land and navigating regulations. Because you know how it is, right? Like we still live in a world where, you know, you have jurisdiction issues, you have a lot of friction to navigate those things. I think we will get to a point where we have tokenized land and RWAs and fractional ownership, and it's going to be way easier than it is today. But we're still a little bit far out, right? And today you have to deal with those realities. And so a lot of the times people come to me, you know, saying, you know, we have this idea and we have this piece of land and we want to bring community to buy the land. And my answer is always, well, I think that's actually not the right approach. Like the right approach is to start by building community. The land will come later. Because the problem is if you start with the land, and you just bring people together to buy land, but you don't really have yet some alignment of like, why are we buying the land? What are we going to do with it? You know, what is the purpose? How are we going to make decisions, you know, and how are we going to, you know, pull in capital and all of that? You're really starting with the easy part, like the land, but then you still have like so many different challenges to overcome, and you don't have community cohesion yet because you didn't bring the community and form it around specific values or specific, you know, interests. And so what I tell people normally is that it has to start the other way around. Like you have to start by bringing people in a community, get them to do stuff like, you know, something basic, like just like this event here, like joining a happy hour, having conversations, understanding what their values are, what they believe in, starting to ideate like, okay, if we want to buy land, like where would we buy it? How would we buy it? Why would we buy it? You know, like answering literally how you would think about building a startup, you know, almost, right? Or a business plan. And the reason this is so important because what you're doing here in that first phase is you're building community cohesion, right? You're kind of bringing and building this social fabric, very strong social fabric, so that this community later on, as it starts getting into the phase of buying the land and dealing with the real world, you know, friction and challenges, there is already a very strong basis and foundation and cohesion for them to navigate those challenges and get kind of to the finish line. And that would be, in my opinion, the number one thing, right? The other thing is obviously the technological angle to this. Like there's so many companies working on, you know, enabling people to pull in capital, real world assets tokenization, fractionalized ownership, figuring out how to make it easier for people to navigate those things from a crypto perspective, and really how can crypto help people remove a lot of the friction. And I think there are so many cool pilots and experiments, but we're not fully there yet. And so I think those two things run in parallel, but I would definitely always start with the community, and the community formed around a specific thing. And I can talk to you about V DAO. Like one of the things I hear a lot from the members of, you know, that join our Discord and join our DAO, I always hear this thing, like people come to me and say, you know, like we're tech people, we love tech, but we also love sustainability and we love regeneration. And it's so hard to find a solution, like a neighborhood or a house that combines the two. Like you typically either find a very high-tech community that completely disregards, you know, nature, or the opposite. You find like some very cool eco-villages, but very low tech, you know, almost like trying to avoid tech. And our community is formed around this concept of, no, you can be high tech and you can be high nature. And we're trying to build a space for people who believe in that to come together and do stuff and build those sorts of like communities. So, you know, that's kind of how we do it.
Yeah. Yeah, great. It's so, we're talking about, you know, this is really a point at which these different audiences are coming together and integrating, right, and crossing over. And being able to bring in these different communities actually collects resources. And the solutions that we're creating are for human solutions, right? So this is really an exciting point at which we can start to get the regeneration, we can get the DeFi together, we can actually finance projects and serve these human needs.
Absolutely.
What is kind of one of the most exciting things that you're thinking of that's starting to emerge? You know, everything's happening really fast right now. Maybe 1 year, what's the thing that we don't see really right now that you think maybe in 1 year we're going to see starting to emerge as a solution?
That's a very good question, actually. So personally, I'm excited about a couple of things. I think the first thing I'm excited about is the monetary experiments that we're having as a crypto community, as crypto communities actually, right? Across the board, from Bitcoin, Ethereum, also the other like layer 1s and layer 2s. And I think my perspective on this is a bit different from like, you know, what some people think about these things. I think about these things as monetary diversity. Like the same way you have biodiversity in nature, and it's actually quite needed, and it's part of what makes nature actually a very resilient, you know, complex network.
Yeah.
I think what we're building now with all these different token experiments, and a lot of them will fail. Like, don't get me wrong, a lot of them will fail. But that's fine. Like 95% of startups actually fail, right? That's not a surprise. But we're actually building monetary ecosystem diversity, which will make our monetary systems and ecosystem way more resilient compared to where they are today, which is like very linear, you know, no diversity at all and super fragile, right? So when I look at this, right, I think obviously the dominant global currency today is still the US dollar. And a big part of that dominance is the fact that you have this petrodollar concept, right? This connection between energy and money that is today enforced through like diplomatic agreements and military power and all of that. And I think what Bitcoin did is it automated that. It actually made the link between energy and money super automated and straightforward and anti-fragile, and no one can tamper with it, right? Like that's literally what mining is. You're taking energy, you're creating a Bitcoin. That's really what you're doing, right? And so that's a very significant technological innovation in the nature of money. And one of the things we're working on, and I'm super excited about, is we're trying to ideate around, can we create a solar currency? You know, if the most infinite source of energy we know of is actually the sun, and we now have like the rise of solar distributed systems and microgrids and battery systems, it's happening, right? So can we actually link that solar energy to a currency the same way in Bitcoin electricity and Bitcoin is linked, the same way the petrodollar and the dollar is linked?
Yeah.
And I'm really like looking forward to see what the DAO could do in that direction.
That's very exciting.
The other thing I'm excited about is, in general, regenerative systems. So I really believe we are in a 2004 electric car moment when it comes to regenerative distributed energy, water, and food systems. You know, 2004, Tesla was doing like an electric car prototype. People thought electric cars are a gimmick. Only, you know, the luxury sports car were available and, you know, high net worth people could buy them. I think we're at this moment here. Like, there is a lot of good systems. They're probably, the really good ones are probably on the expensive side. We still have to figure out how to break it down, how to make it more affordable to everyone. And what we're pioneering at Fifth Word and at V DAO is this concept of what we call an autonomous regenerative property. And so if you think about your home, right? Today, the home is more like a passive depreciating asset. But how about, you know, like, can we make it actually a living asset? Can't you build a house that can generate its own energy through solar, get its own water through like rainwater harvesting, or like converting, you know, atmospheric pressure into water? grow food through a greenhouse attached to it, or maybe, you know, through a food forest or market garden, mine its own crypto, right? And you could use the crypto mining rig to do load balancing for the microgrid. You can use the heat from the mining rig to warm up the house, warm up the greenhouse. So now you're talking about a living asset, like an asset generating actual, you know, value. And I do believe this thing is quite probably expensive to build today. But again, we're in this 2004 electric car moment. And I think 20 years down the line, our belief at Fifthwood and V DAO that these things are going to become affordable and available to so many people. So these are like two of the things I'm super excited about.
And all of this is happening faster than any of us are guessing anyway.
I agree.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, beautiful. We're going to be following a lot more of what you have going on, sharing a lot more information here. I have some fun things to share with you also.
Awesome.
About EVs, power from the sun, and perhaps accounting for value from the sun. That's a very interesting idea there. Thank you so much, Marc. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for supporting these events. These are powerful events.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure to be participating. It's a pleasure to be sharing the events with everyone out there. We look forward to the next one.
Looking forward to the next one, and thanks for having me.
Perfect. Thank you, Marc. Pleasure.
Thank you, man.